And if Atiku Abubakar has a point about Nigeria becoming a one-party state when opposition parties are weakened in favor of Tinubu's 2027 re-election bid, is Professor Anthony Kila, Director, Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies, CIAS. Good morning, Professor Kila.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Well, we missed each other yesterday, so as a result of the flash flood situation in Lagos, but it's okay to see you this morning. Now, quickly, the NDC deregistration by the Federal High Court in Lokoja. Is it the fact that there is a hand of Jacob, the voice of Esau situation here? People saying, well, Judiciary seems to be doing the bidding of the ruling party in order to create a one-party state. Can we make that jump? However, today, the NDC, through its spokesperson, OSA director, has said that they will be going to the appellate court, following the hierarchy of courts. The Peace Movement Party, the PMP, that is at the center of all of this. Is it even a registered political party? And this whole fight about logo, the court can talk about the technical details, but just a logo is the source of the problem. Meanwhile, INEC says it will study the CTC of the judgment before it takes a decision. But generally, what do you think?
Well, I think, thank you very much. I think there are about 4 issues on here. To your direct question, is this the hand of Jacob and the voice of Esau? We do not know, but it appears so. But we must be very clear about it. There is no proof to say somebody in Aso Rock, somebody in APC is sitting down to manipulate this. But the optics are bad. The optics are bad. It must be said. I think this is a time for us to sit down or stand back to look at our democratic journey, this cherished institution of democracy, and for us to realize that things are not going well because of this kind of situation. Some of us warned about a year or 2 ago about the excessive presence of the judiciary in a democratic process, a system that is leading to chaotocracy, a government by judges. And I want to appeal directly to the bench to be very careful of getting too much involved in politics. It taints people, it corrupts them. The judiciary is getting too much involved in politics and they're not doing well. They appear too many times to be lacking common sense. And I define what I mean by common sense here, not knowing what is ordinary. Common sense in the sense that they act in a way that does not reflect the common thinking. The common thinking is that a party like NDC is a major party in Nigeria, like or loathe them. And you can't just go ahead deregistering ADC, NDC, as if there's no consequence. You can't say, I'm following the law. You live in space. You have to live in Nigeria if you want to give rulings about Nigeria. And the judiciary is not acting that way. They need to be very careful about that. The other thing that bothers me is that it seems to me that our partisan political process lacks a fundamental texture, a fundamental fiber, which is to say that we should all agree about boundaries beyond which we must not go. There's a tendency in Nigeria to treat partisan contest and process like a winner takes all, like a football match. We defeat you, you are losers, we do anything to win. That is wrong. That should not be the way. That is civic illiteracy. And again, I want to say, and I say this because I noticed that when these kind of things happen, politicians on one side, in this case the opposition, all reason the same way. The ones in government are either quiet or worse still, they go and defend INEC. Now, I want to appeal to everybody. We have to be very careful. Our partisan position should not corrupt our civic conscience. It is important for us to realize that whatever happens, there should be political parties to contest, they should have equal fitting, and the winner should emerge based on their ability to persuade, using their programs, their policy, and the characters of who they present. We should all agree on that, regardless of how we're going to vote. If we, because of how we vote, view the same issue in different ways, is okay. But if we start viewing issues of institutional fabric, democratic fabric, in different ways based on our partisan stance, there is problem. I think common sense dictates that the regulator in terms of electoral process should be there to ensure that people are able to participate in a free and fair manner and have equal footing. This idea of deregistering a whole quasi, if not the second large, maybe the third most prominent opposition party with a single stroke does not make sense, people. It doesn't make sense to me, and it's a very dangerous flow. I have said elsewhere, and I repeat today, that I think some of us have to have the clarity of mind and the courage of voice to make an appeal to the president of Nigeria and the head of political parties that, especially the APC, we should make an unfair ask of them to come out and say, this is not good for democracy. Let us ensure that nobody can say that we don't want opposition party to be there. Surely people inside the APC, surely people in presidency, if they can think a step or two ahead, when they see this kind of judgment, they will know that opposition is likely to say so, and the optics is likely to appear this way. I think it's the duty of anybody who truly loves democracy to ensure that nobody suspects that democracy is being stifled.
All right, thank you so much for your opening statement, Professor Killer. But let me come to the other side and ask, is it impossible that one of the challenges or the advantage or what the opposition takes or the ruling party in certain instances takes advantage of is that our political parties are not well constituted? And so there are usually opportunities to find gaps to poke to the advantage of a ruling party, for instance. Should we also look at the way that our other political parties are constituted, governance process, so that we avoid holes to pick in these political parties? I'm not justifying this. I'm just saying that let's look at it as a whole.
I totally agree with you. I think you make a good point. Your point is nuanced, and shame on anybody who thinks you're justifying. You see, the mindset we need to adopt is the mindset that is used. Students of international relations will do this. When you manage organizations that are too big to fail, like a country, like a big bank, as a regulator, as a judge, your mindset should be that one of keeping them alive, not destroying them. So if there are discrepancies, if there are inconsistency, the mindset of a judge, of a regulator that deals with big matters of national issue should be, how do we keep them alive and make corrections? On a broader level, I agree with you. Before they're formed, after they're formed, during the process, we need to ensure that political parties follow the right procedures. We need to ensure that nobody imposes candidates. We need to ensure that primaries are free and fair. We need to ensure that parties have true ideas, if not ideology. We need to ensure that nobody owns the party. So we don't get somebody wake up and say, I bought you the ticket for your nomination. I paid for your primaries. We need to ensure those things do not exist. But whilst we're ensuring that, in a way, we need to act like they do in the religious world, to know that the kingdom of God is in heaven, but we're in this world. Whilst in this world, we have to manage the flaws of the people we deal with. You don't tell people to stop coming to church. At most, you tell them they don't take the communion, or they don't sit in front, or they don't read the Bible, they don't lead things if they've committed any error. But you keep them there while trying to save them. That is the attitude I think we need to do. So yes, we need to look at the fabric of the political parties, but above all, we need to keep them alive.
So, Prof, it's not that the ruling party is immune from its own challenges. It's just because a lot of people cannot even raise those challenges and go to the court because it will never see the light of day. My conversation here is the weaponization of the judiciary. Peter Lifu did it. Since the only reprimand from the Court of Appeal, what has happened to Peter Lifu? This Lokoja judge too will do it and go scot-free with it. The weaponization of the judiciary, the third arm of the government. Maybe the judiciary even forgets that it's a third co-equal arm of government. That's the scariest part for democracy as we speak. What's your take on that?
Well, you raise a very significant point there. Let us look at it in three major areas. It is true that the judiciary is being weaponized. You know, you have to be intellectually blind or morally mischievous not to see that in this country, or just totally naive. Let me not get too harsh on people. But inside me, I think you're really intellectual. You have to be intellectually blind or morally mischievous not to see that judiciary is weaponized. But to be politically correct, let's say maybe naive. Now, shame on the politicians who weaponize the judiciary. They are the corruptors of democracy. Shame on them because they corrupt democracy. Shame on them because they come out as weaklings. You say the judiciary forgets that it's the 10th hand of government. Well, politicians are running to them. They're the ones taking their cases to them because we have a bunch of people who we call distinguished, excellency, honorable, even before they get into power, who are not capable of managing their affairs internally. They have to run to the judges, to overrun themselves, to destroy their parties, to destroy people's careers. Because they're not gentlemen and ladies of honor who can manage things within themselves. That is a major issue. The other issue is the judiciary itself. The judiciary is weak. There's no doubt about it. They're a paper tiger. You say they're equal arm of government. I blame them because of lack of character. But I understand them. You live in a system, dear Rufai and dear Nigerians, we live in a system where the executive power buys them cars and pay for their houses. They're not independent. If you want them to be independent, you need to ensure financial independence, you need to ensure social status, you need to ensure they have a platform where everywhere they stand equal to executive and legislative power. That is what makes people independent. I have a proposal, given that you give me this opportunity. Let us reform our constitution and make sure no governor, no president nominates anybody to any bench anymore. Let their ways be parallel. Then you have true independence. Then the other issue you mentioned, if somebody does something bad, you know, it's just basic sociology and management. Consequence, precedence, that is how you have a system that works. And we wonder about these things. The judge you mentioned, if you make a case that your colleagues, your senior colleagues, call judicial rascality and nothing has happened to you, obviously somebody else is going to do it. And some of us wonder about when that happened, I wrote an essay where I said this judge should be prosecuted. He should be prosecuted so that we can see his own reason, and if he has heard, he should be punished. Not because I'm a sadist, contrary to what people think. Teachers don't delight in seeing people punished. It is just that you need to show people what is good by reward and what is bad by sanctioning them. In the process of doing that, in the middle of that, you need to ensure there is fair hearing. That is how a system that works operates. But we lack that.
Okay, Professor Killer, well, I'm not trying to protect the judges. I know what the popular sentiment is. But when judges are guilty of misconduct, you have the National Judicial Service Commission, Federal Judicial Service Commission. At the state level, you have the State Judicial Service Commission, except you are saying that there is even a breakdown of professionalism at the level of those commissions. The second option is the appellate system, which NDC says it is pursuing, except we're saying that even the appellate system is not working. And then that would be a general wholesale condemnation of the judiciary in Nigeria. But there are checks. Are those checks working? However, I wanted to ask you about Senator Siriake Dixon, who is now saying, and who has been quoted as saying, that the NDC is open to conversations with other political parties. Despite the fact that they are going to the Court of Appeal, they are now talking about possible alliances, with the caveat that only the candidates that have been chosen by the NDC will be the ones to be fielded under that alliance platform or coalition, whatever phrase. Do you think that's a more pragmatic approach, or you think they will get victory at the appellate level?
Well, you see, here's what people's experience, their life come into play. Dixon is a politician, so his instinct is pragmatism. You're very right, the appellate system is there, and they should explore that. But, Dixon is talking pragmatic politics. I think his overture is a bit ambitious to say that we're going to do alliance with you, but you must take our candidates. But I think, that's the way you start negotiation in a way. He's looking just in case we don't get this. Those who are purists will follow the appellate system you talk about, which is the right thing to do, which is where we should go. So Dixon talks politics, but, even you say you don't defend the judiciary, but one can tell that you're a product of law. You're those of us who know your biography, you studied law, not only law, you studied diplomacy and legal diplomacy as well. So your mind view is that the judiciary is sacred. Well, let me tell you from outside that your legal mental chamber mind, that the judiciary is slow, is absent, it appears weak. If there are all these commissions you talk about, they're not leading the life of today. We need to hear them immediately. We need to feel them. They need to be as alive as they are alive when they deregister parties. If a judge makes a case, pronounces a judgment that smacks of judicial rascality or does not make common sense, or is acting in a way that is intrusive, we need to hear the bench speak immediately. At the moment, the bench is slow and too silent.
All right. Well, yes, you talk about the bench being slow and too silent. And one of the things we've talked about a number of times here is institutions and how weak our institutions are, thereby enabling, what some people would call capture of state, one-party state, etc.
State capture.
Yes, state capture. What are some of the things that must be done in the immediate to strengthen our institutions? Because it's not just about this administration. It's about Nigeria now and in the future. It's about democratic governance now and in the future. What are some of the things that we can begin to do as a people to strengthen institutions?
Well, I think that we need to do some mindset, some constitutional thing, and some administrative measures. The mindset measure is for us to realize I don't know, we need a kind of, I keep saying this, ANC, an association of non-contenders. We need what in some societies are called the good and the great. We need some people to come out and call out political actors to order to say, whatever you do, don't destroy the democracy. And don't appear to do so. I think judges also need to, the bench and the bar, they need to come out with a blueprint to say, how do we act in the democratic process? What are our boundaries? What should be our posture? What should be the formalities we need to develop? We need to understand that we should not act in a way to be seen as being weaponized. We need to act in a way that we should not be seen to be favoring one part or the other or causing disruptions. Because when you register a party, INEC needs to go and rethink. We need to think this through. But we also need to put in place measures that will make sure our system are not disrupted. There should be a timeline for registering party after which there is the final, the final touch to the party. Once a party is registered, it is done. Nothing else should be able to touch it. Every other thing can change inside it, but the party is there. We need to have this strict rule. But I also think in the long term, to look at our institution, if we really want to save them, we need to come up with plans to make them independent. One of the radical ones is to take away financial dependency, nomination of heads. We need to take them from arms of government. One arm cannot be nominating the another arm and expect that arm to be dependent of it. One arm of government cannot be financing another arm of government and expect that arm to be free of it. There are too many nominations at the moment in the hand of the executive that, yes, require legislative endorsement or approval, but I think that's not good enough. We need a radical shift. We need to imagine a Nigeria where it is not the president that nominates INEC, nor nominates the head of the judiciary, even the IG. I argue that if we want true institutions, we need to find a way where people who are elected due to popularity should not be in charge of people who have progressed due to merit.